While making the last video discussing the first 3 episodes of Lord of the Mysteries, I already knew that I wanted to make a part 2 talking about the next 3 episodes in the series. After the first 3 episodes, the pacing slows down a little bit, which is heavily needed. The amount of things that happen in the first 3 episodes is usually enough to either turn someone away from the show, or challenge them to interpret what they saw and piece it together. This video aims to point out what happens in these next 3 episodes as bullet points, and highlight the very important parts shown at the end. At a first glance, it seems like these 3 episodes don't have tons in common, as they're all separate incidents that Klein has to deal with. However, these episodes are very important to things that come up later, and set up backstory for characters and plot elements that are essential to understanding the overall plot. We aren't really meant to fully understand the implications of these events until later though. I won't be explaining fully as to not spoil the overall story, but will likely be providing a little bit of extra information that isn't exactly told to us in the anime. As of the writing of this intro, I've actually finished Volume 1 of Lord of the Mysteries, which the first season of the anime aims to interpret into animation. I've got to say that in my opinion, this story is written so well and intriguing that I genuinely shed a few tears while reading. I understand that this show is relatively hard to get into, but if you stick around and do some deep thinking and pay attention, the reward is just so worth it, man. Anyways, let's get into the discussion. Episode 4, Magic Mirror. The episode starts when we see a large body-sized mirror. An ominous voice threatens to kill a man, who explains that the Antigonus notebook is a strange artifact. For some reason, it's just a normal notebook in their hands. What's explained here is very important to the plot. Basically, whoever this person is, they sold the Antigonus notebook to some sacrificial lambs to investigate what's inside. These lambs are shown to be Welch, Naya, and Klein in flashbacks. Whoever is talking mentions the Aurora Order, which is yet another hidden organization. The ominous voice admonishes the man for his plan failing. With their lambs dead, and the events that followed, the Aurora Order knows that the Antagonist notebook is in the hands of the Nighthawks. The man nods at his fingers, and then explains that Klein is still alive, and says that he'll find the notebook for the ominous voice by getting to Klein somehow. Fast forward and we return to Blackthorn Security Company. Klein is greeted by old Neil, who will be teaching Klein some ritualistic magic. Basically, Neil's going to do an example ritual to ask the goddess for help. First, you need to prepare the items needed, then chant the corresponding incantation. Neil seals the area with a wall of spirituality first, which will close off the environment that they're in to prevent interference from external sources. Going forward, Klein will use this a lot, since he doesn't want his ritual to be interrupted or messed with. Neil reminds Klein of the biggest taboo, which is attempting to communicate with the unknown. It's a quick and easy way to lose control or go insane, and then die. Neil then chants the incantation for the Evernight Goddess's help. He then asks her to help him pay off his 30-pound debt, and it's noted that these rituals are usually resolved in a reasonable manner, so it's something that's realistic. Klein asks how the goddess will help solve Neil's debt, and he just says to wait. Old Neil finds a wallet on the ground outside, which has plenty of money inside. The owner of the wallet suddenly turns up and requests his wallet back. Klein wonders how Neil will resolve his debt now, since he imagines that the goddess wouldn't make him lie about the wallet, and wonders if Neil would just refuse to return it. Neil returns the wallet, and the man commends his honesty and gives him a reward of 30 pounds. Thus, Neil's debt is paid, and in a reasonable manner. Neil then reminds Klein of the Mystery Prior motto, which is, do as you wish but do no harm. Klein reminds us of the acting method, and that the motto of the Mystery Prior kind of implies acting a little bit, but it isn't true acting. We are then reminded of the feeling of digestion that Klein felt in the last episode. He wonders if it counts as acting as a seer because he used divination a bunch of times, which it is. Klein is then invited to the divination club, and he goes inside. He receives the cheapest tarot divination available from a man named Glacius. The scene is expanded further and is different in the novel, but in the anime, Klein gets an inverted Fool card, which Glacius interprets as Klein not being able to return to his desired location, that being Earth, anytime soon. Klein gives Glacius the fee, and then he starts coughing, which prompts Klein to tap his glabella. He uses spirit vision on Glacius and tells him to see a doctor about his lungs and a dark spot between his eyes. Glacius asks Klein if he's a doctor or something, and then Klein just reveals himself to be a seer. Keep in mind that this is not him exposing that he's a beyonder. To normal people, seers are just those that are skilled in divination and other things relating to that. Most people in Tingen don't actually know about Beyonders and have never met Beyonders before. Klein joins the divination club and has to pay a fee of £5, which is a decent amount of money. He thanks Roselle for the reimbursement policy, so he'll be able to get his money back from the Nighthawks. The tenant who's helping him then mentions that Hanas Vincent has spoken about a seer that would visit that day. Hanas Vincent is in the divination club, and he's their best fortune teller. He charges the most money for his divinations and guidance. She mentions that his class is about to end, and that it's about magic mirror divination. Klein peeks into the room, and Vincent is talking about the 7 orthodox gods to chant to when they use the magic mirror. Klein remarks that this is a safe form of divination, since it's to one of the 7 deities. We then see Vincent give a red-haired woman a box. Klein looks at Vincent using his spirit vision, and sees that his entire body is normal except for his head. This is interpreted as him being worried, but this isn't told to us in the anime. The red-haired woman leaves the room and passes by Klein, and when this happens, Klein's senses focus on the box. It's likely that his spirituality is warning him about danger here. Klein then talks to Vincent, who offers him divination for free. Vincent talks about Klein almost losing his life and the hope that he has, which is limited by his exhaustion and confusion. In order to overcome this, Vincent tells Klein to stop limiting and suppressing himself, and points to 2 words, family and gathering. Klein wonders if gathering means his gathering in the Grey Fog. Klein thanks Vincent and leaves, and then we are shown that Vincent is missing 2 fingers, which tells us that he's the man from the beginning of the episode. Like I said in the last video, we get small lore dumps every episode, which usually goes along with some kind of subject that's present in the episode. The Aurora Order is a secret organization that is relatively new compared to other secret orders, as it was founded in the last 200 to 300 years. The Aurora Order worships the true Creator, and believes that the Creator didn't completely fade but left behind a core existence which they call the true Creator. The true Creator is represented by an upside-down hanged giant. They believe that as long as one is willing to listen to teachings, they will understand and discover godhood, and become angels who ascend beyond reality. They're noted to be madmen, even though they may look rational or normal in day-to-day life. The Aurora Order possesses the secret suppliant pathway. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled program, where Klein determines that he should become a respectable and real seer in order to help digest the potion by acting. In Klein's own words, it looks like the way back to Earth is likely hidden in the Grey Fog. Klein then maps out 2 methods of using the Grey Fog to see if they have any merit in helping him return to Earth. 1. Digest the potion, then advance sequences to see if his Beyonder powers will let him control the Grey Fog. This method will take a lot of time, and don't forget that Klein actually has to find the recipe for the clown potion and subsequent potions as well. 2. Make changes to the chant of the luck enhancement ritual, replacing celestial worthy, blah blah blah, whatever, with his own incantation, and redirect the chant on himself. With this, Klein can see if he can link himself to the Grey Fog to borrow its power. For option 2, Klein comes up with his own description that he uses to chant for himself. The fool that doesn't belong to this era. The mysterious ruler above the Grey Fog. The king of yellow and black who wields good luck. Klein hears something outside his room, and burns the paper he's been writing on. There's 2 reasons for this. It's because he doesn't want anybody to know that he can write in the same symbols as Roselle, which is Chinese, and also because he has very good memory due to the seer potion, so he'll remember what he wrote on the pages anyways. Klein is hesitant to open up the CGI door this time, which he just snaps open at Mach 40, and it's Melissa, who eventually tells Klein about a birthday banquet for her friend Selena. It's on Sunday, and Klein decides that since it goes along with what Vincent said, he'll actually end up going. Fast forward, and Klein arrives above the Grey Fog. The 2 stars that represent Alger and Audrey shine down, and they materialize inside the Grey Fog. Klein uses his spirit vision on Alger and Audrey. The former is a deep blue sea of storms and waves, and the latter is as calm as a lake. Klein congratulates Audrey on becoming a Sequence 9 spectator at the help of Alger. This deal was done off-screen, but in short, the deal was done in a way as to not expose either's identity. Alger had Audrey get someone to send the ghost shark blood to a specific location, and then afterwards told her the recipe inside of the Grey Fog. He notes that the symbol for spectator is a dragon, and for sailor it's a storm, and the symbol behind Klein is the pupilless eye that represents concealment, and the contorted lines that represent change. We don't really know what this means, though. Audrey asks Klein and Alger 3 questions, which are: 1. Is there anything that I should be aware of now that I'm a spectator? Alger answers and says spectators should have a detached attitude and spectate calmly and objectively. From minute clues, you can grasp at true thoughts. Basically, spectators are what it sounds like. They spectate. They have enhanced powers of observation when it comes to observing people individually or in groups. They can discover their true thoughts based on their expressions, manners, and actions that they take subconsciously. They also gain enhanced eyesight to see body language. Spectators are also granted enhanced inferential, analytical, observational, and identification abilities, as well as enhanced memory. Alger gives her advice on not losing control, and tells her about grasping the potion's power through the potion's name. Klein knocks on the table, interrupting this advice by quoting Emperor Roselle, telling them about the acting method. This is very important information for Alger and Audrey, since the acting method isn't widely known in the Lone Kingdom. Audrey's second question is about her dog, Susie, who drank the first spectator potion that she made. In most cases, an animal drinking a Beyonder potion would result in instant death or becoming a monster, but Susie does neither of these and becomes a Beyonder creature. This means that Susie is also a Sequence 9 spectator. For her last question, she asks how she can speak out better candidates for government, since productivity is starting to crash. Klein gives an easy way to solve this, which is holding fair, public exams. This will make reliable and skilled people stand out from the crowd who can serve the kingdom for the better. He reiterates that it should be open to all people, not just nobles. He says this information is a down payment, meaning he expects some kind of return on investment for this idea. He asks for pages of Roselle's secret diary. It isn't common knowledge that it's a diary, so Alger is shocked to hear this. He correctly assumes that Klein can understand it. Klein asks them for one more favor, and it's to attempt ritualistic magic in order to pray for a good dream. He asks them to use this 3-part honorary title to see if he can hear what they say. It's basically just a test to see if redirecting the fog chant to himself is feasible. This title shocks both Audrey and Alger, since 3-part titles are usually reserved for only deities and gods in this world. They incorrectly assume that Mr. Fool is on par with the 7 orthodox gods because of this, but this maintains Klein's advantage by making him appear way stronger than he actually is. Klein ends the meeting and asks them to perform this ritual on Sunday. Klein ponders about telling Benson and Melissa about his identity as a seer, since it would probably actually help his acting, but he decides not to. We then get some slice of life scenes where Klein and his family get new clothes for Melissa just before the banquet. Fast forward and it's Sunday, and we arrive at Selena Wood's house. A CGI door opens and they're greeted by the Wood family. We're also introduced to Elizabeth, who we saw at the Divination Club earlier. Klein hears Alger start doing his ritualistic magic, which confirms that he can hear their prayer with his honorary title. The banquet starts, and everyone's having a good time. Elizabeth reveals that she knows Klein is a seer from the Divination Club, and promises that she won't tell Melissa. Klein also nearly drops the meat when talking to Melissa. Later, Selena opens her gift from Hanas Vincent in her room. It's a high-tier magic mirror. It has Hermes characters etched into the edges. They start using it, and Elizabeth starts chanting an incantation for the true creator, which immediately alerts Klein. We are then shown Hanas Vincent in his room, in front of a large body-sized mirror from the beginning of the episode. It's revealed that he's a Sequence 9 secret suppliant. The abilities of a Sequence 9 secret suppliant aren't really that noteworthy, mostly just knowledge about mysticism and knowledge about ritualistic magic. They also gain high spirituality, which allows them to perform said ritualistic magic and divination, but they don't exactly specialize in that field. They can also detect auras of decently powerful Beyonders as long as they didn't conceal their aura before meeting them. Vincent connects with Selena's mirror, and Vincent knows that Klein is present wherever Selena is, so he waits for him to show up. Klein runs up the stairs and uses his topaz pendulum to divine if there's danger, and there is. He peeks through a CGI door and uses his spirit vision to look at the mirror. The surface turns black. Then he sees some kind of evil entity residing in the reflection. Klein realizes that this is a big problem, but he doesn't have time to call done. He decides to use ritualistic magic, and since he knows that Selena and Elizabeth are regulars at the Divination Club, he correctly assumes that they have the materials for the ritual. His plan is to use the power of the Evernight Goddess to try to pray for help. Selena is shown to be possessed by something, and Elizabeth sees something terrifying in the mirror. Melissa and Elizabeth are knocked unconscious, and the mirror is absorbed by Selena's body. Klein shows up and ignites a slumber charm in his hand. He says the incantation, and it binds Selena's possessed body, and her eyes start to close. Klein quickly sets up everything needed for his ritual. He starts the incantation and seals off the area with a wall of spirituality. He obviously does this to prevent interference, but it's also important to note that any sound that's within the wall of spirituality isn't heard from the outside. Vincent's being countered, so he uses his blood to strengthen the possessed Selena. She awakens from her sleep and tries to interrupt the ritual. Klein shoots her attack away and also tries to shoot her as well. Klein's pinned to the wall by her hair, and his spirituality is starting to get drained from his body. Vincent's speaking through possessed Selena's body and asks him what he discovered while reading the Antagonist notebook. Klein fights to keep his eyes open, but slowly loses his ability to stay conscious. And then a blue flame ignites and 4 dots appear on Klein's hand. Klein's able to open his eyes, which have regained their color. Audrey's knelt down, attempting her ritualistic magic. Hanas Vincent is blown back from Klein's newfound focus, and he sacrifices his arm for more power to be given to the possessed Selena. Klein collects himself and is able to finish his prayer to cleanse Selena from evil's corruption and to keep her safe from danger. The spirit possessing her is then extracted from Selena's body and is funneled into a silver bowl, where it vanishes into the illusory darkness. The mirror falls from Selena's hand, and Klein shoots the surface, which cracks it. This breaks the connection between the mirror and Hanas Vincent. Klein expresses his surprise that the 3-part honorific name would actually be able to be directed at him using the Grey Fog, which led him to be able to save himself. He then decides to keep his identity of a seer a secret from his family, so that they aren't subjected to anything dangerous. The scene transitions to Vincent, who is distraught after his failed mission. Behind the most terrifying CGI door we've seen so far, he finds Oracle 22, Mr. Z, who is the ominous voice we heard at the beginning of the episode. He then kills Hanas Vincent for failing him once more. Klein reports to Dunn and tells him about the situation with Selena and says that there's something strange with Hanas Vincent, so they go to find him. Klein tells Dunn that he suspects that Vincent has ties to an evil order that was also after the Antagonist family notebook. We see the invisible feather, the musical motif, as well as writing sounds once again. Dunn opens the same terrifying CGI door from a minute ago, and he's greeted to Hanas Vincent's dead body. He's lying down on his bed as if he was asleep. Dunn enters Vincent's dream, where he stands in a calm body of water surrounded by clouds. Dunn turns around and sees a naked giant hanging upside down with chains wrapped around its body. It has a large vertical red eye in its forehead. It's the true creator. In the post-credit scene, we are finally given a look at Backland, the capital of Lone Kingdom. We see the Hall estate, which is nothing short of a castle. Audrey Hall is asleep in her bed, where she's awoken by knocks on her door. She permits her maids to enter through a CGI door, who give her the garments she'll wear for a special occasion. She gets dressed in a shining white and gold dress. Her outfit's adorned with blue jewels, befitting of the most dazzling gem in Backland. Even Susie gets a jewel-encrusted collar. Audrey dances around with Susie, and she says that she's dizzy. Audrey recoils at listening to Susie talk. Susie's able to speak human languages, as an effect of drinking the spectator potion. Okay, there's a ton of stuff that happened in this episode, but the most important things that happened are: Hanas Vincent is shown to be involved with selling the Antagonist family's notebook to Welch. We now have a firm timeline of how the notebook ended up in Welch's hands. The possession of the Antagonist notebook so far goes like this. The Secret Order member Regents accidentally sells the Antagonist family notebook into the antique market as a regular ancient book. It ends up in the hands of the Aurora Order, where Hanas Vincent ends up selling it to Welch. Welch and Naya die, and Klein delivers the notebook to Ray Bieber's house. Klein attempts suicide afterwards. The notebook is tracked down by Klein and the Nighthawks, who retrieve it after defeating Zombie Bieber and the Circus Clown. The Antagonist family's notebook is given to the Holy Cathedral of the Evernight Goddess for verification. Klein learns how to use ritualistic magic to call upon deities for help. Klein joins the Divination Club to help his potion digestion by acting as a seer, where he meets Hanas Vincent. Information about the Aurora Order that I mentioned earlier. Audrey Hall becomes a Sequence 9 spectator. Klein is able to create a 3-part honorary title that utilizes the Great Fog in order for others to be able to pray to him. This can be used for long-distance communication with members of the Tarot Club without needing to be in the Grey Fog's realm. Klein finds himself at Selena Wood's house and is able to foil Hanaus Vincent's possession of Selena. Hanaus Vincent is killed by Mr. Z of the Aurora Order. We see the invisible feather, sound motif, and writing sound, while Dunn and Klein investigate the whereabouts of Hanaus Vincent. Dunn sees a vision of the true creator in Vincent's dream. Episode 5, Hero. At the very beginning of the episode, we're greeted to a theater on Zoutland Street. The performance is about the Alfalfa, a ship that had tragically been affected by some kind of phenomenon that caused the passengers to start killing each other. Klein sits down in his seat, and the play presents its protagonist, the great hero Triss, as the one who is able to help the passengers resist the sudden urges and save some of them. Triss presents himself in front of the crowd and is met with cheers from the audience. Dunn appears next to Klein, who tells him that the Nighthawk HQ has started to transport the Antagonist notebook to Backland, and Dolly went with them. Dunn coughs and explains to Klein that seeing the true creator in Vincent's dream hurt his spirituality. In Lord of the Mysteries, it's in your best interest to not look at deities or gods. Klein basically reiterates what we already know, that the Aurora Order worships the true creator, who is noted to be an evil god. Klein explains to Dunn that there is a part of the Alfalfa tragedy that isn't known to the public. We're shown a flashback from 1 week earlier, where a woman named Anna visits the Divination Club. She pays Klein for his divination, and asks him to divine where her husband is, since he was aboard the Alfalfa, which had just started its return over a month ago. She's worried that something may have happened to him since it's been so long. Klein performs an astrolabe divination, which isn't something that's explained at all in the anime, so here's how it goes in the book. Klein needs the man's name, facial features, address, and date of birth. Joyce Meyer, 15th September 1323, 2 p.m. Tingen City, East Borough, 8th Stevens Street. Short blonde hair, aquiline or long nose. Alright, so 1 plus 5, which is from 15th of September, equals 6, which is his spiritual number. This represents a balanced and harmonious life, a forgiving and decent marriage. Then calculate the year path number, which represents the person's luck for that particular year. It's currently 1349, so 1 plus 3 plus 4 plus 9 equals 17, and then 1 plus 7 from 17 equals 8. 8 plus 9, which is the birth month path number, because September is the 9th month, plus 6, which is the spiritual number from earlier, equals 23. 2 plus 3 equals 5, so the year path number is 5, which means that he would meet with an accident. Klein then asks Anna to leave the room, and continues with the astrolabe, which includes horoscope and locations of planets and stars. Klein then writes on a paper in Hermes, Joyce Meyer's current location. He repeats this in his mind 7 times and leans back in his chair to enter cogitation, or a relaxed state. Klein utilizes dream divination, which allows him to basically recreate what happened in his own dream, based on what he's divining. From here on, we can go back to the anime, which shows us what he saw in his dream divination. We see Joyce Meyer in the ocean, struggling to stay afloat. Panicking and alone, he manages to find his way to shore, then it shows Meyer shambling towards a blue house, with a red pinwheel at the front gate. It isn't shown in the anime, but Klein tells Anna what he saw, and asks her if there's a toy windmill in front of their house, which there is. Klein tells her that Joyce Meyer has actually returned to her house, and he needs consolation and a warm hug, not a bunch of questions. Back to the present, and back to the anime, where the play has ended. Anna thanks Triss for saving her husband, Joyce. He looks back with a suspicious look at Klein. Anna introduces Klein to Joyce, who says that Klein is the man who divined his safe return. Cut forward, and Joyce is at the Divination Club with Klein, saying that he's having nightmares about the Alfalfa tragedy. In the anime, Klein does what seems to be another dream divination, where in the book, Joyce just describes the situation to him. We see the Alfalfa and a bunch of dead passengers. A man throws a baby into the ocean, then jumps him himself. He's caught by Joyce, who wanted to know why they all started killing each other. Klein then tells Joyce that he may have seen the actual culprit, but is overlooking it. We see Triss looking towards Joyce, which is what Joyce overlooked. Klein turns around and sees a vision of Hornachus, the mountain range. He hears whispers of Hornachus and Phlegraea, and it has ruins and an empty throne. We still don't know exactly why Klein hears whispers of Hornachus, but we do know that it relates to the Seer pathway and the Antagonist family, both of which have been very present in Klein's life recently. Klein closes the CGI door behind him and greets Dunn and tells him that the culprit is Triss, the public's hero. Dunn says they need more evidence, so they'll start a joint investigation of Triss. They're going to use the help of the mandated Punishers and the Machinery Hive Mind. These two names aren't really explained much at first, but basically, the Church of the Lord of Storms and the Church of the God of Steam and Machinery have their own faction of Beyonders, like the Nighthawks, and those are their organization's names. Alright, we get another small lore dump, this time about the Demoness sect. Important things to note here are, they worship the primordial Demoness. They believe that she is the true successor to the Creator, and was created at the beginning in order to bring end to all things. All upper-ranking members are female. They used to be bloodline-based, and was called the Demoness family in the Epoch of the Gods. Their mission is to spread disaster, and they possess the assassin pathway. Back to the show, where we enter a room only lit by the sun, and a large bed housing Triss and two women. He's awoken by a hooded woman, who asks if Triss is having fun being thanked for something that he caused. Triss responds with a resounding yes. He's revealed to be a Sequence 8 instigator from the assassin pathway. Allow me to break down what abilities assassins and instigators have real quick. So basically, a Sequence 9 assassin gains typical assassin-like abilities, like shadow concealment, which lets the assassin conceal themselves in darkness and shadows, letting them hide from targets. Sprinting weakens the effectiveness of this. Assassins gain improvements to their body, which makes them excel in combat, evasion, and concealment. Physical capabilities are also enhanced, like better footwork, speed, and other things. Feather falling. An assassin can land with the weight of a feather, allowing them to glide in the air or descend slowly, and not injure themselves in falling from a pretty large distance. Mighty blow. An assassin can release all their strength in one blow. Night vision. Assassins can easily see in the dark. Heightened senses. Eagle-like vision and sharper hearing. Okay, Sequence 8 instigators are just like the name says. Instigation. They can trigger evil desires in others' hearts, which cause them to commit crimes or violent acts, without even being noticed. They can also sense what others are feeling, like their emotions and desires. Instigators can appear reliable and approachable, even without speaking, and can easily convince people of their lies through words and actions. They're also a bit stronger than they were as an assassin. Okay, back to Triss's room, where the hooded woman says they still have another mission in Tingen, and asks Triss with carrying it out. She gives him a payment in advance, which is the recipe for the next sequence of the assassin pathway, Witch. Fast forward to later, where Old Neil and Klein go to a bar. They go into a secret CGI door, which has an elevator inside. They go down and enter the Tingen Underground Market. This is a spot for Beyonder materials, items relating to mysticism, and other things. There's an insane man here named Monster, who runs up to Klein and says he reeks of death, almost seeming like he knows that Klein came back to life. Klein picks up some amulets for Benson and Melissa, and notices one with Chinese on it. Apparently it's Roselle's text. It says dumbass or idiot in Chinese. Klein then notices Triss, asking around for materials for his potion. He follows him, and then notices some other people that are also following him, associated with the mandated Punishers. Triss notices them and takes off running. They start shooting at him, and Klein starts running after him as well. Triss is shot in the arm and falls down. Although, the chase continues, and Triss's agility lets him outrun the mandated Punishers and escape. Klein and Neil meet up with Dunn, who's looking at some dead people. Dunn tells Klein to come with him, as they need his dowsing rod seeking to help track Triss. Dunn explains that the reason Triss was followed and shot at is because the mandated Punishers found Triss linked to a murder case in nearby cities. Triss is now a wanted criminal, and they know he's a Sequence 8 instigator. Klein realizes the reason tragedy befell the Alfalfa was due to Triss's instigator ability. They track Triss to a house and find that he is not inside. They make all the women inside leave, and one of them bumps into Klein. Triss has seemingly vanished, and the police haven't been able to find him for some time. Some time passes, and Klein gets a pay raise after becoming a full employee, and he continues acting as a seer in the Divination Club. Klein is unable to return to Earth using the Grey Fog, and he continues his mysticism and combat training. Some more time passes, then Klein is summoned by Leonard to invest some deaths that are happening in the poor region of Tingen. They investigate this alongside the mandated Punishers and Machinery Hive Mind. We are shown some of the deaths briefly, which don't seem to have any kind of outside influence. Klein realizes that death was already upon each of these people. He looks into a dead woman's memory, and sees that she was touched on the back by a female. This matches what the other organizations found, that all the deaths have a hand of a woman present. They suspect that these lives were cut short by a Beyonder, using them as sacrifices for a ritual of some kind, whether for summoning an evil entity or some kind of large-scale curse. Klein performs divination to see if he can see where the location of the altar is. He's shown a vision of a house, but it isn't very clear. They start their search, and Klein says he's being interfered with for his divination. Over time, they track down the house based on Klein's sketch and based on where the murders took place. Klein uses divination to confirm that this is the house that he saw in his divination. Klein, Dunn, Leonard, and Fry set up shop outside the house and formulate a plan. Dunn is going to pull everyone into a dream and have Fry and Leonard go and see what's going on. This will mitigate the risk, since if Dunn's allies are hurt in the dream, they don't get hurt in real life. Can't say the same for the enemy, though. Klein is ordered to stay back as support. Alright, before this fight happens, I'm going to give a brief explanation on the powers of Sequence 7 Witch. Enhanced charm and appearance. Basically, they become more alluring. Dark magic. They can conjure black flames, using them for various purposes. Frost. Can cast ice-related abilities, usually as attacks or sealing. Mirror manipulation. Can use mirrors as substitutes for taking damage in their place, using their mirror self. The death of one's mirror self can be revived by the mirror that they used to substitute with, which will break upon revive. They can also hide within mirrors for a few seconds. Witch's curse. Can use blood or other things to curse people. Using ritualistic magic, they can curse their target and use black flames to burn whatever they use to curse the person with, which will incinerate their target from within. Staff substitution. Pretty much the same as the mirror one, just with the staff instead. Invisibility. By using a powder and reciting an incantation, they can become invisible to the naked eye. The woman inside the building notices that something's wrong and looks out the window. She uses some powder to turn herself invisible. Fry approaches the building and notices some spirits following him. He takes out one, then an invisible hand wielding a dagger stabs right into Fry's back. He disappears, which alerts the woman that she's in a dream. She gets kicked in her chest by Leonard, who sends her flying. A large hand emerges from the wall to crush her, but the woman slices her hand open, which takes her out of the dream. Klein is again told to sit back while the others handle the woman. Leonard aims and shoots her, but she shatters into a bunch of little pieces. This is mirror substitution, so basically she can trade herself with a mirror if she takes damage. She disappears and then reappears inside where the mirror is shattered. She rushes down the stairs where a statue of a woman is placed. This is a statue of the primordial demoness, and where the altar is. She prays to it, and the Nighthawks prepare to infiltrate and attack. Shadows come out and attack the Nighthawks, which Leonard and Fry take out with their guns. Fry is attacked from behind by a dead spirit, which tries to freeze him. Since Fry is a corpse collector, he has resistances to dead spirits in their attacks, so he counters this pretty easily and is unharmed. Dunn does some parkour and jumps through the second-story window. He immediately feels that something's wrong. Dunn sees the altar and is attacked by a curtain, which he breaks out of. He shoots it and blood comes out. He locks eyes with the woman across from him, and she uses the statue to attack. Dunn is hurt and she starts running away. Leonard's ready though, but he's attacked by a rose that impales his hand. He tosses it away, and it disappears and floats in a different direction. Leonard runs to find her, but she's already pretty far away from him. The woman retrieves the rose, and uses a curse on the wound it inflicted by burning it with black flames. In order to counteract this, Leonard makes a substitute for the curse using his own hair, blood, and a fingernail. The woman takes the statue of the demoness and falls into the river like a feather. Back at the house where the fight took place, Klein uses an incantation to have the mirror be restored and show every person who is reflected in said mirror in the past week. They see the woman that they were just fighting, and Klein recognizes her from the Triss investigation. Leonard says that she looks very similar to Triss. Then Leonard says he suspects the woman is Triss, and Fry's confused by this, asking why he would disguise as a girl, but Klein says no, he became a woman. This explains why Triss was unable to be found for so long, and the discovery of this fact reveals that most, if not all, high-ranking members of the Demoness sect were once men. Drinking the Sequence 7 potion turns any male into a female, and since the potion also makes you look hot, it's easy for people to not suspect that you were a man before. The scene transitions to a train where the new Trissy has escaped to. We then get an official reveal that Trissy is a Sequence 7 witch, which we already knew before. Alright, so what'll happen in this episode? Dunn sees an image of the true creator and it hurts him a little bit. Klein acts as a seer, which helps his potion digest. Information about sequences 9 through 7 of the Assassin Pathway. The demon sect is intentioned for an unknown goal, but we know that they like to spread disaster. Triss becomes a woman by drinking the Sequence 7 witch potion and escapes to an unknown location. Episode 6, Teacher. The episode begins and we see someone madly drawing on a wall with what seems to be blood. The man has a mole behind his ear, so we know from this it's Azek, Klein's professor. His new drawing is of a castle. He looks at it, and his shadow transforms into different shapes. Afterwards, we get a little timeline of events. First, Elizabeth from episode 4 comes to Klein at the Divination Club to ask him to interpret her dreams. She has nightmares of Lamund Town, which she had just visited. She sees a wraith knight in an old castle. After sharing this info with the Nighthawks, they agree to investigate it and bring along a new sealed artifact, 3-0782. This artifact is the mutated Sun Sacred Emblem, and it will be useful for this mission because all you have to do with it is have it within 15 meters of a wraith or spirits, and they'll be purified within 1 minute. The downside is that you can only carry it for so long before you become an idiot who can only worship the sun. Dunn, Fry, and Klein search for the castle, find it, and then the wraith awakens and attacks them. Klein whips out a Requiem charm and uses it on the wraith. This is a new charm that we haven't seen before. Basically, the Requiem charm is derived from the Sleepless Pathway and has the ability to soothe ghosts, souls, zombies, and other spirit-like creatures. It can also help with vengeful and evil spirits to some extent. The wraith escapes the charm, and Dunn orders Fry to find its weakness. Dunn and the wraith spar with each other, and the sun emblem is kicked away by the wraith. Fry finds its weakness, and Klein runs for the sun emblem so he can bring it back within range of the wraith. Klein is then elbowed in the face by the wraith with enough force to burst his blood vessels in his eyes instantaneously. As we see Klein's bloody face stare into nothingness, Klein remarks that the injury actually didn't hurt him at all. This is because the entire fight they've been inside a dream created by Dunn, so their bodies and the wraith's body haven't actually moved at all. This was to stall enough time for the Sun Sacred Emblem to activate, while not actually being in any danger. After being awoken, the wraith tries to attack Dunn, who has the Sun Sacred Emblem in his hand, but it's too late. It's already been 1 minute. The wraith gets Thanos-snapped out of existence, and the threat is gone. It's told that the wraith in the castle are centuries old. Klein finds a painting of a man that is from the 4th epoch, so it's over 1,000 years old. This person is the first Baron of Lamund, the town that the castle is in. Klein notices that the man in the painting looks strangely like Professor Azek, which immediately raises questions on Azek's age and beyonder sequence. Dunn says they're going to stay in the area with the emblem to make sure that all the danger is gone. They're going to rotate shifts, and whoever's on shift will be responsible for carrying the mutated Sun Sacred Emblem on their person for the time while the others rest. Klein volunteers to keep watch first, and he's handed the Sun Emblem. Klein sits down and wonders what went into creating this sealed artifact, but we know it's related to the Sun Pathway. He tells us that the source of the emblem has actually never been verified before. He decides to try to use divination above the Grey Fog, where it's strongest, to see if he can see where it came from. He materializes a copy of the emblem into the Grey Fog and says, "The source of this mutated Sun Sacred Emblem in my hand." The scene changes into a big open room, with an altar of some kind. We see a member of the Church of the Eternal Blazing Sun walk up to the podium, where there's a floating gold liquid. He stretches his arms out and holds the emblem towards it, where the substance is absorbed into the emblem. This causes the man holding it to disappear from its strength. Thus, the emblem was created. Klein rewinds his vision and decides to examine this mysterious gold-colored liquid. He touches it, and everything immediately starts burning around him. He turns around and sees a blinding yellow light. The eternal blazing sun itself is shown. Its heat immediately burns Klein just for looking at it. The Grey Fog's cathedral burns down, and Klein rolls on the floor in pain, engulfed in flames. The Grey Fog extinguishes itself and Klein is eventually left unharmed. Klein accidentally looked at a deity, and is only alive due to the Grey Fog. If not for the fog, he wouldn't even be ashes, just nothingness. After this, Klein gets a plethora of knowledge relating to the Sun Pathway. These things are: do not look directly at deities. White Angel. The technique of making a flaring sun charm. Can siphon power from the mutated sun charm in place of praying to the eternal blazing sun. extremely hostile towards the Lord of Storms and God of Knowledge and Wisdom. Sequence 9 Bard Potion Formula. Sequence 8 Light Supplant Potion Formula. Sequence 5 Priest of Light Potion Formula. Part of the Sequence 4 Unshadowed Potion Formula. The golden liquid was in fact the blood of a god, the eternal blazing sun. Klein learns that he can try to exploit the deity's blood for charms. Klein returns to his body at the castle, and reminds himself to be careful when doing divination so that he does not accidentally look at more gods. With the threat resolved, they return to Tingen, and the mutated sun charm will be placed back in the Chance Gate. Klein returns to his house, where he sees a letter in his mailbox. Okay, we get one more lore dump, and this time it's going to be about epochs. So, the first epoch, Age of Chaos. The creator awakens from chaos, creating the first light and forming all things from his body. The second epoch, Dark Epoch. The Evernight Goddess awakens. The third epoch, Cataclysm Epoch. Humans survive the Great Cataclysm with the blessing and protection of the gods. The fourth epoch, Epoch of the Gods. Frequent war and changing of dynasties. The fifth epoch, Iron Age. The seven gods bless the northern continent. Alright, so Klein gets a letter from Azek, who says he's found information about Hornachus. Klein goes to Koi Academy to meet with him, but wonders about the potential of him being thousands of years old. CGI door, CGI door. Okay, Klein enters and Azek is not inside. He draws back the curtains to see his blood drawing on the wall. The drawing is of Lamund Castle, which they were just at earlier. Azek enters the room, and Klein tries to explain himself. Azek says he's been having strange dreams lately, and he wakes up to find odd drawings on the walls. Azek gives Klein a book about the research of the Hornachus Main Peak ruins. Klein has to read the book here at the university since he's not a student anymore. This entire scene is to make Azek look suspicious, but we finally get information about Hornachus. There are ruins of an ancient nation that used to exist there, which was the nation of Evernight. The book doesn't show how they buried the dead, but there are no traces of any bodies or corpses. They worship the ruler of the Evernight, or the Mother of the Sky. It's safe to assume that this being is, or is related to, the Evernight Goddess, based on the name similarity. Keep in mind that the Antagonist family's notebook had mention of the nation of Evernight, so we know that these things are related in some way. We see Klein's very detailed coffee, and Azek notices something's up with Klein based on the lumps of sugar he takes. Azek reveals to Klein that he's discovered erratic fluctuations in Klein's fate, and it's somehow related to Azek in some way. Azek tells Klein that he knows that Klein knows some of his secrets, but says not to worry. Azek just wants to know about his past. Klein and Azek go to Lamund Castle, and before he leaves, Klein performs a divination that tells him that he will actually be safe on this journey, and also that if he hides this info from the Nighthawks, Azek will save him in the future. Azek reminisces about this ruined castle that used to belong to him. He remembers that he had a child who used to have a sword. Klein determines that the Wraith was Azek's long-dead son. After picking up the sword, Azek has a vision about the castle. It's returned to its former glory for a moment before Azek drops the sword again. A trapdoor is open which reveals a room with a coffin inside. It's supposed to be sealed to prevent wraiths from forming, which obviously didn't seem to work. The coffin's made from stone and was damaged by someone else. The lid is lifted and we see the armor and bones of Azek's son, which is missing its head. Azek uses some kind of spiritual aura blast, which conjures a bunch of spirits down to where the coffin sits. We then see a very long scene which shows us events of Azek's past. Among a pile of dead bodies lies Azek Eggers. The pile is set ablaze, but Azek awakens from the dead, impaled by many swords. We then see an old woman conducting some sort of cursed ritual. The swords sticking out of Azek's body disappear one by one. Then he takes down the army alone. He's eventually pinned down, and it seems like this is the end. Until the horses and guards start floating upwards, as if gravity is turned off. A pair of skeletal arms reach out and crush the soldiers, brutally killing them. Azek rises from the floor, and a large skeleton is conjured from the ground. They take on the army together, and Azek survives this war. He remembers the army that he used to lead into battle, his wife, seasons passing. Azek is named Grand Baron Lamund. Later, after time has passed, Azek's wife seems to be ill, as well as his son. Azek has an army of ghosts who kneel before him outside of his castle. Azek ends up hurting his son by ore blasting him back inside. Azek decides to leave his family behind, worried that his presence will hurt them further. Azek leaves the sword behind for his kid. As he strips himself of his armor and walks off into the snowy landscape, Azek remembers scenes from this life that he's lived, and as he walks off, his memories of this life fade. We return to the current day, where Klein wakes Azek out of his dream. Azek is a corpse collector with an unknown sequence. It's safe to assume that he's at least sequence 4, though, since, why else would they hide it? We've already seen sequence 7 and 6, so it has to be something really insane for them to actually hide it from us. It's said that the coffin was sealed while Azek's son was still alive, and someone took the skull of his son recently. Azek cuts his hand and performs bloodline tracing in order to see what happened to the skull. The blood locks onto Klein, which is odd. We then see a large door which absorbs the blood and then opens. 1,000,000 cadavers spill forth, and we see the skull thrown under a tree where it withers away. The skull isn't traceable since it was destroyed. We then see the invisible feather and that musical motif that accompanies it. Azek says that he sensed that erratic fate in Klein again, which tells us that all of this relates to Klein and Azek in some way. Azek makes a proper memorial for his son, and Klein asks if he remembers who he is. Azek is a person who's lived a very long time, and Klein remarks that he may actually have ties to death itself. Azek reveals that every few decades he goes into hibernation, and when he awakens, he forgets mostly everything besides his name and basic knowledge, but also has a piece of identification with him as well. He then starts to dream about different eras, one where he had a daughter who loves the swing that he made for her, one where he's a feudal lord with a wife and 3 children. Azek loves and cherishes his family, but he always hurts them by the end of it all. Every dream he has ends with him leaving, alone. These, however, aren't dreams. They're past lives that Azek has lived after each reincarnation. Over time, Azek has long stopped chasing the idea of family, possibly due to the pain of separating from each family somehow remaining despite losing his memory. He doesn't even remember how many lifetimes he's lived in solitude. Azek thanks Klein for helping him recover some of these memories. He now has a path that he wants to follow, to avenge his defiled son's gravesite. Klein walks home, saying that he understands Azek. In this world, Klein isn't really Klein, and he knows that eventually he'll have to leave Benson and Melissa behind. If the fate of Klein's current life is predetermined to end this way, then he'll cherish these small moments that he has with them, and leave good memories with his siblings for them to reminisce about. Okay, what stood out about this episode that we need to keep track of? We got Klein and the Nighthawks defeat the Wraith in Lemon Town. Klein looks at the eternal blazing sun directly and survives, obtaining valuable information about the sun pathway and how to make the flying sun charm. Azek Eggers is a mid to high sequence beyonder of the corpse collector pathway, and may even be related to death. Klein does divination and finds out that Azek will save him in the future at some point. Klein is in some way related to whatever is going on with Azek's son's skull. We once again see the invisible feather and sound motif, after Azek tries to look for who took his son's skull. Klein and Azek kind of strike up a friendship, since they both have a goal to find out who's responsible for what's been happening. These 3 episodes aren't really related to each other in terms of events that happen in them, but they're still very important in the progress of the story, as well as gives us insight into new orders, characters, and new motives. The Roar Order plays a pretty big role going forward, as they're involved in a lot of things that will happen in the future, as well as the Demoness sect. The plot really starts to thicken with the introduction of more orders working behind the scenes, as well as the actual introduction of the Go Azek as an important side character. Like I said in the last episode, the Antagonist Family Notebook takes a backseat after episode 3, but is still very relevant and vital to the characters' plot lines and motives. Another thing to keep in mind is the mysterious feather that we see almost once per episode. Normal deduction would say that it's symbolic for something, and that's up for the viewer to theorycraft. This series is a lot of fun, but as mentioned in the last episode, a lot of things are cut short or not explained much because of time constraints. It goes without saying that the show could have easily used 1 to 2 extra episodes to flesh out the pacing better, but it's still very enjoyable if you pay attention and get really immersed in the world of Lord of the Mysteries. That's all for me today. but I definitely want to make at least one more video, talking about Episode 7 as a standalone. Episode 7 is where the plot really starts to come together and make sense, and ties pretty much everything that's happened so far together, so stay tuned for that. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye.